Hi everybody, welcome to a new installment of Conversations in Wire with me, your host, James Browning. Um, I am a sales representative here at the Soft Flex Company. We are a jewelry wire manufacturer based out of Sonoma, California. We have a gallery that's open to the public every Wednesday and Thursday, and we would love to see you stop by. So today, we're going to do Kumihimo, which is a weaving technique that uses a board. This is a Square Kumihimo board. They're coming round too. But today we're going to work on doing Kumihimo in craft wire, which is very fun. I learned it in Tucson while I was there, and I made this little ring. It's pretty cool. And I got the idea out of a book, and the book was called Kumihimo Wirework Made Easy by Christina Larson. And it's a great book, and I haven't gotten my copy yet, but I hope to soon. There's like a lot of great patterns and awesome instructions on how to learn to weave. But I thought I would give you a demonstration on how to do the wire weaving today and give you some tips. So let's get to it then. Okay, so let's talk about supplies. So we're going to need, the first thing is a Kumihimo plate, and for this project we want the square because we're going to make a flat weave, not a round one. Then we're going to need, for this project that I'm showing you today is 22 gauge, but you can use different gauges on the Kumihimo plates, just dependent upon what you want. For the thickness of the weave, we're going to need, of course, our nylon jaw tools so that we can straighten our wire out, and some painter's tape or masking tape, and then cutters, and then to help you straighten the tool or straighten the wire, we're going to need some pliers. So you can use bent nose or chain nose, something that's going to help you grip the wire. So the first thing that I did, and I did this off camera so that I didn't have to waste some screen time with you guys, is I cut 8 pieces of wire. Now I made these fairly short. Since I don't have the book, I don't remember how long the actual length of the wires needed to be cut, but I made about 10 inches because that should make a fairly long project. I did, I think, 24 inches on a project that I did last night, and I have way more than I need. So I would say cut 10 to 12 inches for this. I'm going to be making this short, so we're not going to be on camera for 2 hours while I do this. So the first thing we're going to do is straighten our wires because we want them nice and neat. This is really important for this project because the weave is so tight that if your wires are bumpy, that is going to create a problem when you're trying to weave. So straighten these out as much as you can. Remember, go once down one length and then turn it 90 degrees so that you can get the other side of the wire. It doesn't take much, just trying to get the main bumps out. We're going to be straightening our wires during the project too, because since this isn't like cord or even soft flex wire, this is going to get kinked and bent when we are working with it, because that is the nature of craft wire. So that's why these little nylon jaw tools are so important in my wire working kit. And I apologize ahead of time for any time I slip off of camera because that is something I'm still working on. I do a lot of research to find out what kind of project I want to do next, and YouTube is one of my favorite places to hang out. I've got a couple of favorite people. Yvonne Williams is one that I love to watch. She's so great on camera. And there's a couple of other ladies that do some wire work. Let's see if I can remember. I can't remember at the moment, but I will get back to you and have somebody put links in the video, and maybe they can help out. I'll definitely have something for you next week. I apologize. Alright, so the next step is we're going to line up our wires so that we have a nice, neat stack. Now, at Tucson, I was kind of out of tape, so I had to twist the wires together, and that wasn't bad. It just created a little bit of a harder start because it wasn't flat to start with. And then I had to kind of figure out where my wires were when I was setting up. So it really is helpful to tape your wires. And this is also a tip when you are doing like bezels for wire wrapping stones. Tape your wires, keep them flat together. It really helps. So if tape is not in your wire toolbox, go get you some. And I would try and use the stuff like painter's tape that like the blue stuff, because that leaves less residue than just regular masking tape. So when you take off the tape, it'll be easier to clean. Okay, so now we're going to put it into our Kumihimo board, and I just slip that down through the middle, and I want the tape like right here. So what we're going to do is, the Kumihimo boards have numbers on them, and this project really doesn't use the numbers much. It's more of a look, like you just tell where things are going. So I'm going to take my first 4 wires, I'm going to put it in 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then I'm going to take my next 4, find out which one's the first one. There it is. And I'm going to put it in 14. They got unstuck. There we go. 14, 15, 16, and 17. Okay, so this is how it should be set up. We've got our wires basically directly across the hole from each other, 4 and 4. And the weaving is really, really simple, and it's just over and over and over. So we take our first wire over number 4, and we put it over directly across. I have it in E. And then what I do is I just kind of fiddle with the wires. Our first couple of weaves are not going to be very neat because there's nothing really keeping the wires where they need to be. So that's what our weaving is going to eventually do, but we still want to fiddle with it. So we're going to take our first one on the bottom in number 14, and we're going to move it up to number 4. Okay, and then we're going to take number 5 and just move it down to 14. So what we're doing is we're going back and forth and replacing what we just moved. So number 15, we're going to go up and put it in number 5. And then we're going to take the next one, number 6, and we're going to move it down to 15. And then we're going to take 16 and move it up to 6. Nope, see, something went wrong. See how we're not crossing our wires, so let's back out a little. So these first ones are really difficult. Alright, so this should be in 16 and this should be in 17, so our wires are not crossed down here. Now, if our first couple of weaves aren't looking very good, that's okay. It's just going to get better as we go. So we're going to go take 6 and put it into 15. We're going to take 16 and put it into 6. And we're going to take 7 and put it into 16. I take 17 and put it into 7, and then we're going to take our E and we're going to bring it down. And what this does basically is it makes the wire go back and forth over a leader. So let's do it again, and maybe we'll start to see a pattern form. So we're going to take number 4, move it over to E, that's our leader, and I like to kind of tuck it down so that it's straight across. And then we're going to take 14 and move it to 4. And that's another thing you could do. 14, 4, 15, 5. So they're just moving back and forth. 5 is going to go into 14. 15 is going to go into 5. 6 is going to go into 15. 16 is going to go into 6. 7 is going to go into 16, and 17 is going to go into 7. Now, if you look, we're kind of getting wibbly down here, so I'm just going to take my wires and just kind of tease them back to where they need to be. And if we do this every time, we should see a fairly neat weave, okay? And finally, we take our leader E and we move it down to 17. So we're back to square one, 4 and 4, okay? So let's do it one more time. 4 is going to go over to E, so we get our leader. Press it down so it's nice and flat on those wires. 14 is coming up to 4. 5 is going down to 14. 15 is coming up to 5. 6, 15. 16 to 6. 7 to 16. 17 to 7. Okay, so we've completed another one. And I'm just going to squeeze this a little. Just kind of adjust my wires so they're kind of neat. And remember, the first few rows are going to be kind of wonky. That's just the nature of wire. You can always cut it off if you want to, or you can hide it in like a wrapped end cap, or you can just find one of those end caps. I think they have them so that you can get flat end caps that you can pinch onto wire or cord, and they look pretty cool. And that's if you're making a bracelet. But if you're not, then if you're making a ring, just try and keep your ends neat. So we just go back and forth, over and over, making sure that our wires are not crossing each other. Okay, so I got another row, and so I'm just tightening it up. It's easier to tighten them as we go along, because once we get out further, we can't really go back and tighten them. Well, you could take like a pen, like a tack, and go through and straighten your wires that way. So 4 comes over to E, and I tuck it down, trying to make sure all of my wires are kind of close together when we're weaving. And down, and up, and down, and up, and down, and up, and cinch it together. So you can kind of see a pattern forming here. Bring E down. Now, what you want to make sure is that your wires that are going close to the knit here, that these are still nice and straight. Do you see how they're starting to get bent out here? When that comes closer, you want to stop and take a moment. I'll do it now just so I can show you. And hold on to your weaving and just kind of get those kinks out real quick. And if you do them one at a time, you'll remember where they go. And it's good to do it while you have everything 4 and 4 not started in a weave, because it's really easy to forget where your wires go if they all pop off at once. But if they do pop off and you're trying to figure out where you're at, you can kind of look at the weave itself, the wires that tell you the directions, and then if you notice, there's no crossing in any of these wires. So if you do pop off or have to start another project and you want to put it back on, just keep these wires straight out. Now, your wire is going to get stiff because we're working this a lot, so it's work hardening itself. Just take your time, be slow. This is one of those projects where you have to be patient. But it's also a project that you can totally watch TV or a movie. I wouldn't try to have a conversation. It's hard to try and do stuff and talk at the same time, as I'm sure you're well aware. But let's go ahead and get another row going. So here's our 4. I'm going to move it over to E, cinch it down, and we're taking 14 and 4, 5 to 14, 15 to 5, 6 to 15, 16 to 6, 7 to 16, and 17 to 7. Okay, and we're going to cinch our wires together. And I'm trying to keep the weave here straight and neat. And I'll bring my Eva back over. Type 4 and 4. Alright, let's do one more, just so we get this weave down good. So 4 goes over to E, and I push it down close to the other wires. 14 comes up to 4. 5 goes down to 14. 15 comes up to 5. 6 goes down to 15. 6 goes up to, or 16 goes to 6. Oop, 14's trying to pop out. Where would I stop? I went 16 to 6, so now I'm moving 7 to 16, and then 17 to 7. Okay. Cinch it down, make sure everything looks good, and move our leader back over. Alright, so like I said, it starts out a little wobbly, but then once you get going, it starts to get together. So let me take this off really quick and show you the other one that I was working on. So this I did multicolored. And the weave is not necessarily the best, but I'm still learning just like all you guys. So since I just learned this like last month, I haven't had a chance to play with it too much, but I love playing with it. It's really fun. So I will show you how to put all this back together. So you pulled it off, and if you look, my wires are kind of spread apart. So I spread them back, and I've got one I can put in 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then 14, 15, 16, and 17. And see how everything is not crossing here? Okay, so pretend I just wove all of this on camera, and you were amazed, and you're happy. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this off now. Okay, so we've got all of this mess now. I could continue to weave. I just cut way too much wire last night, so I'm just going to stop now, and I'm going to trim off this excess stuff. So I'm going to leave about, let's say, 2 inches, just so we have stuff to work with. Just clipping it off. Easy peasy. Okay. Now, this is a lot of wire, so this is definitely another project, so I wouldn't throw this away. But now we can take the tape off the other end. Alright. Let's see, we got some sticky, goopy stuff here, but that's okay. You can always take some like rubbing alcohol and try and get that off. It usually works. Alright. Okay, so let's see. to make a ring, I'm going to take my mandrel. Now you can do whatever you want with this wire, but I'm going to try and make a ring. So I'm going to set it at 10 and just kind of bend it in half. And that's basically the bottom of my ring. Now the project that I saw, I'm going to straighten these out, in the book, it basically had you take your weave and kind of go around and bend it so that it gets in line with the ring. And you would do the same with this side. Bend it. And the way that we're bending is basically holding on and keeping it flat and bending around corners. So we're making a shape kind of like that. I'm going to put it back on the mandrel and see if I need to cinch it together a little bit more. Yeah, see, we want our band to be at 10. So we're going to make it like that. Now see, because it was so long, I've got a really interesting shape. Now, if you made it shorter, the weave, I think this was about, well, let's measure it out. Do I have a ruler? I don't have a ruler. But that looks to be about, I would say, 5-6 inches. Okay. Alright, so we've got basically the inside, the size we want. We want to kind of keep it there. So we're trying to angle our weave so that the ends touch the main band of the ring. Remember to try and keep this flat, not twist it around to get to where you want it to go. Okay, so let's see where this lands on my mandrel. Okay. So about there is where we want these. And what we want to do is we want to use our ends here. You know what? I totally forgot a step. Before we start twisting, we're going to separate these back out into 4 and 4. So we have basically, we want the wires to alternate back and forth. And that looks right. Okay. So on one end, now you can totally retwist this, so don't panic. I'm going to take this side away from me, and I'm going to clip them fairly short. And I'm going to take some round nosed pliers, and I'm going to bend these in. Oh, I didn't cut them short enough. What we want to do is create another loop so that these aren't pokey. So I'm going to clip them a little shorter. Okay, so we're going to take our round nose and just bend this back in. Okay, I do it for all 4 of them. Okay, and we can take another set of pliers if we want to, and just kind of squish them down a little. We don't want to bend them too much though, because we want it to look like the end of the weave. See? Where are you? There you are. See how they just kind of bend back into the weave? Okay. Now we're going to do that to this one. Now this was the end with all the tape, so the wires are really all over the place. So this blue one is over here. This green one is over here, I think. There. Just look at your wire pattern and figure out where your wires want to be. Okay. I think I'm okay with that. So I wrapped this way. So we want to keep both of these wraps on the inside of the ring. So I'm going to clip this side, not this side. Okay. Now this part is a little fiddly and I apologize, but it's worth it, you guys. I just want to make sure that when we feel it, we don't feel any catches. Like, see, this green one is way catchy, so let's see if we can move this back. Okay, good. All right, let's go back to bending our stuff together. All right. Okay. You know what? Let's make this a size smaller on the ring mandrel so that we can tuck this down. And then when we are putting together the bends on the ring, sorry, I'm kind of pushing down to make sure that it's a nice smooth band. Any sort of stretch that we have from our wires coming together should push that out into the size that we want. Because what we need to do is we have to take these 4 wires And do you see how there's loops here? Where am I looking? Okay, so these loops right here. Let me poke with these. So these outside loops are what we're aiming for. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our wires and we're going to thread them through those loops. So this is kind of the reason that we're trying to, when we're twisting, kind of aim for a certain spot because that's where they have to land. And I suggest threading your wires first. And then you can go back through and grab them so you can pull them tight. And I'm going to use my pliers because my fingers are too slippery. Okay, there's one. There's 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing with our round nose pliers. So we're going to clip off the excess here. About like down to quarter, no, that's not even, like 1/8 of an inch. And we're going to try and bend these wires around. So that they become part of the weave. And they kind of tighten up. Okay, so see how this one is poking out in the middle there? I'm going to take my pliers and just move it and try and put that back where it belongs. Now, since this is my second ring I'm making, it looks a little messy, and so I'm assuming that you guys out there are amazing wire wrappers and you will make a much better ring than I am. Because that's really bulky right there. Another thing that I should mention is that when working with colored craft wire, you need to be careful with your tools so that you don't end up scratching the color off, because it's just a coating like an enamel that's baked on, so it can be scratched and you'll see the color underneath, or the core color, like copper in this case. So I'm just taking this and bending the wires a little bit out so that they are more flat, so it'll be easier to weave these wires in. And the other thing I would mention is that when you are doing this, to try and leave a little bit more of a tail when you are starting, because that will make it easier to thread these through. And if you're having a hard time getting your wires through the loops, you could use like a tack and open up those side loops a little bit more. Okay, let's see about pulling these all the way through. Boy, this one's fighting me. Just be patient and gentle. There. Okay. See how we're meeting here, just like we did on this side? Now we're going to take these ends here, trim them off. Okay. And work these tails around to a loop. Okay, I'm just going to squish these down a little. Might have been a little long. There we go. Doesn't feel too pokey. The inside of the ring is the most important because you want that comfortable. Alright, I'm going to fling it on here and see what size we ended up with. Oh, look at that. I mean, we could stretch it, but 9 is where we want to be. And you can always take your nylon pliers and kind of mess with your weave a little. Using the nylon jaw pliers will help, especially if you're using colored wire, because the nylon jaw tools don't scratch as easy. Okay, there we are. So we have made a woven ring out of Kumihimo weave. So there's the beginning of our weave that we tried today, and this is another ring. This one was much better, but I think that I had a little bit more focus, maybe, I don't know. And it's also the color. Color shows your mistakes a little bit more, I think, because you can see the weave. But that is today's demo of an interesting ring to wear now. I might actually go back through and see if I can fit a bead or something, just wire a bead in here, or two, possibly. Give it a little bit of pizzazz, who knows. But there you go. I hope you guys had fun watching me today. I know I did, and I hope to see you again. Have a great afternoon.